Travis, good to see you, my friend.
Appreciate you, man. It's good to be here.
Good to for us to connect. And it's interesting is that you and I met a couple months ago, right, in passing, and then we ended up being at a party together, right? We're all at the same table with some interesting people. Then we just start chatting about what you're working on, what we're working on, and we're both men of faith, and you start to think about alignment and assignment. And at the time, you don't know why you might be meeting somebody, but you don't worry about it.
Yeah.
If you can feel someone's in the right place and they're coming from the right place, you figure it out.
Yep.
So it's great that we're able to connect on this and, kind of talk about your journey, the path that you're on now, paths that you've been on in the past, and just figuring out what the future holds, and a little bit about what modern day Don is and what we're doing. But that's why these conversations are so important. So, glad we're able to sit down. So much appreciated. Thank you for being here with us.
I appreciate you including me. Divine appointments are always a thing, right?
Completely.
So anytime I can get with a good alignment and mutual conversations and just like-minded activities make life easy.
Absolutely. So one of the things for anyone that's watching now that isn't familiar with your story, who you are as far as the different journeys you've been on in your life, maybe you can give everyone just a quick rundown and maybe some of the biggest transformational details of your life.
Sure. Where to start, right? It's been a life of valleys and peaks, and that's anybody can say that really. It started with broken home, childhood issues. Father was in jail at 2. Mom spent plenty of years trying to replace father figures to no avail. Most of them abusive alcoholics. Spent most of my childhood just learning how to protect my mom and my sister, right? You can hear that story all over the place.
Yeah.
But that sent me down a trajectory of always looking for leadership opportunities, strong men, and role models. And a lot of that was disappointment. People are going to disappoint you, no matter how good their intent is, how good their heart is, whatever. People are made to disappoint, right? That's just who we are. So, long story short, and that kind of led me down a life of loving me some me, right? And if it's gonna be, it's up to me.
Okay.
And really just put together a trajectory of going through life, looking for validation and accolades and awards, and caring what people think, and looking to be that guy that everybody wants to look up to and be around. That put me in team sports, did well there. Put me in the Marine Corps, did well there. And even something like the Marine Corps. The only reason I chose the Marine Corps was because it was the best of the best, right? It was a pride and ego thing. If you're going to join the military, we got to be a Marine. That's the hardest thing to do.
Well, then you say pride and ego. What's the few, the proud,
exactly.
The Marines, right? So it's right in their motto. Yeah.
Definitely grew up with a chip on my shoulder.
Okay.
Moved every 2 to 3 years, so I was always in fights, always the new guy. But the blessing in that over time was learning how to build relationships, learning how to let things roll off and adapt and overcome and always find solutions and always be able to make new relationships. So in hindsight, I can see that. In those times, it was not as easy to see, right?
Yeah.
But through just having a strong mindset and knowing that I couldn't rely on anybody other than myself, it definitely gave me some good mental toughness and a lot of drive to just prove everybody wrong, all the way down to deep core issues of prove my dad wrong for leaving, all those things that we hear. Success looked like a lot of different ways in different careers. Law enforcement, I was Officer of the Year, Detective of the Year. I was a team leader, I was a SWAT leader, firearms instructor. Found myself on undercover units, knocking down doors, chasing different gang organizations, and really let the ego, pride, and personification get a hold of me. Got humbled right around 2015. Was involved in an accident where I was one of 4 people in that accident, and unfortunately, the other 3 people involved in that accident passed. 2 of which were minors. They were both 17, boyfriend and girlfriend, and the rear passenger of that vehicle was a disabled veteran. As a disabled veteran myself, hits a little hard, close to home, right? And that job gives you a lot of perspective in the first place. You see a lot of death when you're doing SWAT, you're doing undercover work, even just being a police officer nowadays. Like you see a lot of hard things.
Right, right.
Gives you a different perspective on life. Can be real cynical, but it can also be very appreciative of what we have on our time here. I was very far from God in all those years. I was raised Mormon. My first wife
Mormon,
was,
you raised Mormon?
Yep.
Okay.
My first wife was Jehovah's Witness.
Okay.
My second wife was Jewish. Like I'd been through the ringer when
Wow.
it comes to religion.
Okay.
And when that accident happened, I went from being the guy in a tri-state area. You couldn't go anywhere tactically or as looking for detectives and what have you, not know my name, hear my name, get a phone call to be involved in something, to very quickly being public enemy number 1, right? So get involved in an accident. That was right around the Freddie Gray incident in Baltimore. I don't know if you're familiar.
Oh,
remember.
yeah, I remember that.
So,
sure, I remember that.
Not the best time to be in the news as an officer in a negative situation. But we hear it all the time that you find out who your friends are when stuff hits the fan.
Right.
And went from being the guy to everybody turning on me.
Yeah.
Even
can
the
imagine.
union, right? Like I was a shop steward on the union. I negotiated contracts. I helped with a lot of things in that situation. Well, we can't help you. It's too high profile of a case. So just completely dump all my salary or savings and defend myself in that situation. But very humbling moment. Very much sent me on a trajectory of what am I even doing here? Right? All these accolades, all these things that I was doing, all these things that I thought, I knew who I was. It was a really big void because I didn't know whose I was, right? But ultimately sent me on a different trajectory, got cleared of that incident, and never been able to look at life the same. Remember that day like it was yesterday, very vivid, and decided to move back to Texas, followed some mentorship that I have, Keith Craft, obviously you know that name.
Sure.
And I just felt called to leave where I was, come back home to Texas, sight unseen, picked a spot, felt called, drove out here, and really focused on what's the legacy I was going to leave for my 1-year-old daughter at the time. And just haven't looked back since, right? So kept driving forward on living a purpose-driven life versus a accolade-driven life. Found God, was saved in 2019, and man, I've just been on fire since. Entrepreneurship, business development, leadership, team building through different businesses. I now have 9 businesses.
9 businesses.
We touch about 13 different states right now.
Okay.
A couple different brands. My business is pretty much on autopilot. I've been able to really focus on coaching men, on being men, which is definitely something we both know is lacking nowadays.
Sure.
So, yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
Yeah, no, it sounds it. Now, so one of the things that you mentioned was the move to Texas, right? That move. So when you made that move, was it get sort of fresh start, everything you had, pack it up in a truck and just come out here? I mean, what was going through your mind when you made that decision, and how did you make that decision?
Yeah, so I was up in the Northeast, right? DC, Maryland, Virginia. I'm from Texas, and I never was a fan of the Northeast. And when you get in that moment that you don't know which way is up, right? You kind of look at the compass and you got to find north somewhere. And for me, it was come back home to Texas. I have family here, and I've lived all throughout the country, but Texas is always, I've known it's going to be home, just wasn't sure when.
Got it.
So with that, at that moment when everything was up in the air and I didn't know where I'm going, go ahead and start there, right? Get back home to Texas. Where was the question? Primarily from Houston. I didn't want to go to Houston. And Pastor Keith and Elevate Life Church and some things that were really drawing my attention I was plugging into were here in this area, right, in Dallas. And so was prosperity, so was a lot of growth. So it seemed like it just made sense to come. So yeah, what that looked like was I packed everything up in a U-Haul, towed my car behind me, had 3 dogs and a snake in a cage in the cab of the truck, and I just drove. I rented a house.
This is what, 2019, 2020?
That was 2016.
2016.
Yep.
Okay, so pre-COVID.
Correct.
Before COVID.
Yeah.
Wow.
Rented a house sight unseen off Craigslist. I think I was in Nashville, stopped at a truck stop, took a shower, and pulled up a house on Craigslist. I hope this is going to be there when I get there.
Yeah.
Sent the deposit online. Luckily enough, I showed up and it was there.
It was
a real
there.
thing. And just
Was that here in
started a
Frisco
new
or
chapter.
was it
in
around?
Prosper, actually.
Prosper? Yeah. Showed up sight unseen.
Yep.
That was it. Just pulled up.
Yep,
Got
so
it.
I'm
Got it.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Everybody thought it
yeah.
was crazy. Where are you going? I don't know yet.
I don't know
What
yet.
are you going to do? I don't know
I don't know yet. Yeah.
But what do you mean? You don't know? You don't know? I'm like, yep, I'm just going to go
Yeah.
figure it out.
It's interesting that you say that because 2019, I did the exact same thing. I came out here.
Yeah.
And it's funny is that I'll show you on my Instagram, U-Haul,
Yeah.
car hooked up to the back. I didn't have a snake or 3 dogs, but it was that leap of faith.
Yeah.
It was the stepping off stepping into the cavernous abyss without knowing if there's a bridge there, right? So I completely am resonating as you're saying that. I'm just nodding because I 2019 for me, where it was along that journey, where it was saying, like what is, where is this taking me? What is it that I'm doing? What are the accomplishments that I'm really working for? Right, and I have a lot of respect that you can frame it from that perspective and be able to then start building. So now you mentioned entrepreneurship. So then once you're out here in Texas, then entrepreneurship, right? A lot different than law enforcement.
Yep.
But now you go and sounds like jump 2 feet in the field of entrepreneurship. And what was that process like? And what was some of the first? Was it within the health and wellness space, or what were some of the first moves that you made in that game, the game of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, sales had always kind of had my attention. Even when I was a cop, I was flipping dirt bikes and Jeeps and whatnot on the side. I just had to kind of keep that creativity and hustle bone going. It was there. I just didn't know how to feed it.
Right.
So before the Marine Corps, I spent a lot of time in restaurants. I've been working since I was 12. First job was roofing and waiting tables, and I had a lot of experience in restaurants, quick, easy money. You can get a job anywhere waiting tables, right? And the tie to entrepreneurship actually started back then when I think about it, because waiting tables to interviews, interrogations, and getting confessions, it's just people's skills. It's just sales at the end of the day, right? And so getting into entrepreneurship, to me, the barrier of entry looked like cutting my teeth in some sales. So actually interviewed a few places, got some job offers at some restaurants as a GM. Actually at the time, Frisco PD, Prosper PD had an opportunity there, and ended up, right over here, there's the main event in the LA Fitness on Main Street.
Okay. Yeah.
Main event.
In Frisco.
Correct.
Yeah.
What I ended up doing was go with the known and the unknown, hedge my bet. I got a bartending job at Main Event, and then I got a sales job at LA Fitness.
Got it.
Tie together all the things I know. I wanted to get in shape, stay in shape. I knew how to bartend and make quick money. Didn't know anything about sales, so it's all right there. So I was hitting the gym from 7 to about 6:30, and then shower, change, about 7:30, 8 o'clock, bartend Main Event till 2 in the morning, come back.
Is your daughter still back in the DC area?
Correct.
Got it.
So at that time, she was not born yet. She was, my ex-wife was pregnant at the time. But so that was just a cycle that made sense, because all I had to do right now was work. I didn't need any fun, didn't need any friends. It was, let's build the foundation.
Got it.
And did well, excelled at LA Fitness, got a GM spot in like 3 days, had opportunities, make some good money, got to a point I was making $10K a month as a selling gym memberships.
Yep.
Just having to go knock doors for a $30 gym membership, but the hustle was there. And
Yep.
just learning a lot, right? While having the kind of safety of bartending and cash.
Got it.
Then that turned into a role of kind of like a traveling GM, which was, hey, we got these gyms that are not doing well. You seem to do well about putting a team together and streamlining operations and making the system dependent versus people dependent. And that was just the military mindset, right? Like everybody's cross-trained, everybody knows how to go to war. Then we have specialties and snipers and less lethal and whatnot, but everybody knows how to do this first, and then we bolt on expertise, but they're all interchangeable.
Got it.
So that was something that started to translate to business pretty easy for me. Then I got recruited out of LA Fitness for outdoor sales, which was energy efficiency, insulation, radiant barrier, 100% commission job, big risk, but I'm a big believer in the pendulum effect, if you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
And did that. I actually got to a point where I was making 20, 25K a month doing that, but missed the whole first year of my daughter's life because that was 8 bids a day, 3,000 to 4,000 miles a month driving around, just selling people in their living rooms, right? Long story short, did that for a couple of years, had a really good reputation, was doing really well, decided I can do this on my own, use the same subcontractors, I just need a brand. And most of my business was self-generated and relational anyway. So did that for a year, did just under $1 million sales, net about 350. And I had a prayer at a time on how much money I needed, which was 105 to open an iCryo franchise, which was in the wellness space, right? Biohacking, IV infusions, right in Frisco.
Yeah.
And God delivered. 1 month I made 106. So
Get
it's
out of
all
here.
right, This is
all right.
not my decision to make. You gave me the money and another $1,000 to go have a nice dinner and celebrate. Right?
Right.
So jumped in there and we shattered all the records. We became the first location in the country to do 100K in a month, to do $1 million in a year, and we changed the model. And
Really?
I say we because it wasn't me; it was the team, right?
Sure.
I built
Everything
a
is
team.
we, bro. I'm with you on that.
Ego, everybody in their lanes, give them opportunity, no ceiling, and from that location, we built a management company, coaches and consults, a holding company for mergers and acquisitions of other locations. We're at 7 locations. We're projected to be about 12,
Of iCryos?
12 to 15 iCryos
Okay.
before the year's over, all in mergers and acquisitions. And then the management company, we coach and consult other small businesses. We have a niche in franchising because franchising is easy for our team to figure out because the model's already figured out. You just have to know how to scale it. Like I've never been the guy to come up with everything. I've been the one to be able to figure out that 20% secret sauce, kind of take it to that next level.
Okay.
So for franchising clients, it makes it easy for me because you just focus on the model you already know. Let me show you how to get out of your own way, work on the business, not in it, right? So we touched about 7 different brands in franchising at this point in about 9 different states.
Got it.
So,
Got it. So now let's say with iCryo, within health and wellness, LA Fitness, iCryo, and then what's the from the fitness side of things and within the health and wellness side of things, like how big of a part of your life is that, and what do you like? How do you see it now differently than when you were in law enforcement?
Sure. So fitness to me it's just a discipline opportunity, right? As well as I have a temple here that I got to sacrifice often.
All day.
Word's pretty clear on that. But if you can discipline your body, you can in your mind, like you can do anything, right? And there's not too many successful people you run into on a daily basis that are overweight and obese and whatnot, right? So every now and then somebody gets lucky. But to me, fitness became that kind of routine, non-negotiable, do something to make sure that I'm staying disciplined. I'm also, a legacy that I built for my daughter means nothing if I'm not here to enjoy it with her, right? So that's the optic that it starts to give me. But we have a passion around a lot of things wellness. So like even the management company and businesses we get involved in, we try to keep it aligned with that. that are like some of our clients. We have a Smoothie King, right? I have a client that I'm helping them actually open a gym here in the next couple weeks right down the street here. So if it's not in wellness, and whether that's physical or mental kind of thing, we kind of stay away from it. I picked up a wing snob. I'm getting ready to sell that. Not keeping it for too long. It just doesn't align with that kind of concept, right?
That's a good point.
So, but yeah, fitness for me, I was always 175 pounds. I was not a big guy. This is a journey that's stayed consistent, but I've had a passion for it because I grew up on medications. I mean, I was asthmatic since I was 15 months old. I was pronounced dead twice before I was 9. I was in and out of hospitals plenty of times. I was that guy on the football field pulling the inhaler out of my waistband.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's many reasons there's passion there.
Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned was legacy for your daughter, right? And so within modern day Don, the things that we talk about are what we believe that young men or men in general should give an F about.
Yeah.
Right? Faith, family, fatherhood, fitness, fatherhood being one of them.
Yeah.
Faith, finances, of course, we spoke about entrepreneurship, but faith, but also fatherhood. In hearing about your upbringing and maybe some of the challenges that were there, how has that directly impacted the role that you're now taking and playing in your daughter's life, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's that old adage that a person could go one of two ways. You're raised by an alcoholic, you either become an alcoholic or you never drink alcohol, right? It's one of those ideas. So it sounds like there was a big impact on your life, right? Because something we talk about within the Don community is what it means to be a modern day man, modern day Don. And part of that is those men that decide, if God gives them the responsibility of children, how they handle that responsibility. So how do you take on that responsibility, and how has your upbringing been an effect on how you take on that responsibility today?
Yeah, the best thing about that is my upbringing showed me all the ways to not do it.
Got it.
Right, so it's made it kind of easy to identify the right ways, right? When you get in the right room, the right people kind of thing. And, you know, you come across a Scott Unkelbach or a Keith Kraft,
Scott,
You know, a man that is truly leading himself well, leading his family well, creating a legacy of followable excellence. Like, that stuff's easy to identify because I've seen all the ways of not to do it, right? Not only through my childhood, but when you're running and gunning on the streets, you see plenty of fatherless homes. You see how that plays out through legacies and generations, and how people have to pick up after themselves or make things happen, right? So when you see all the ways not to do it, it makes it really clear on how to do it. And that's been a blessing of mine to have to figure out with a daughter, because I always thought I'd have a son first, right? And best thing God could have done for me is give me a
daughter.
Princess to go after. And so
are tea parties involved?
They are on occasion.
Some tea parties. Got it.
That's finding the balance, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Talking about a modern day man, that's where we've lost the balance.
Gentle warrior,
polarity, right? Between masculinity, femininity, all these things. So figuring out how to walk that as a man nowadays, and bringing that back, which is the main thing I coach on, right, is exercise daily with how I raise my daughter. Because today's environment and society would say she needs to be an independent woman, right? It's like, no, she needs to be a strong woman. Like,
big difference. Well said. Strong versus independent are completely different.
Knowing when to lead, when to follow, which I know plenty about. The military and law enforcement, that's what's drilled into you, is stay in the lane. No, okay, in this situation I need to step up and lead, but right here I need to follow. That's something I can teach my daughter.
Respect, 100%.
So there's moments to be independent until you find your mate, you find your king and whatnot, right? But teaching her that on how to be strong and how to be well-rounded to be able to tackle this legacy that you're going to be part of creating, because I definitely identified I was going to be that stopgap, and really just being intentional about it. You know, with her, I'm intentional about every piece that I can, even with the name. So my daughter.
Yeah, how do you design that? Like, how do you define that intentionality
Yeah.
part of it? Wait, let's see, we got two. Cigar?
Dealer's choice, yeah.
All right. Might as well get these cutting while we're talking. So you're talking about intentionality.
Yeah. So there, when it comes to intentionality, there's never a piece that you can't be intentional about.
Yeah,
in my mind. So that started with when she was named, right? Appreciate you.
Yeah.
So you ever seen the show Game of Thrones?
I haven't seen
Kinda
too much
popular,
of it, but
but
yeah.
probably
yeah,
heard
yeah.
of it
Oh,
at
of
least,
course,
yeah.
of course, of course.
So set in, old king and queen and taking over the land kind
Yeah.
of stage. There's lots of princesses and princes, and there's a character called Arya Stark.
Arya Stark.
Arya Stark. My
Okay.
daughter's name's Arya. Named her after this character.
Okay.
Back to the intentionality.
Okay.
So Arya is that princess that didn't want to be a princess when she grew up.
The princess didn't want to be a princess. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
She knew how to be a lady,
Okay.
and she's capable of being a princess, but she always found herself training with archery and swords and whatnot with her brothers. In the show, she ultimately becomes an assassin that is very key in the completion of the circle, I'll say.
Okay.
So, back to intentionality. If I'm gonna have a daughter, she's gonna be well-rounded. She'll be able to take care of herself. She'll be able to, be that assassin in life in the battlefield that we have and taking out the enemy when needed.
Okay.
But also be completely capable of being a lady and, being presentable and knowing how to traverse those different moments and environments when needed, right? So being able to defend herself, step up for herself, but also when she has the right man in her life, be able to follow his lead. But she's going to have to be a pretty strong woman to attract the right man, right? So when I say intentional, it gets that granular and that basic, because starting with her name, like, she'll always know what she was named after. I'll always let her know, and that kind of creates the avatar that I keep reinforcing with, hey, you're going to come to podcasts with me, you're going to come to speaking engagements with me, because you're going to be around at these big...
She's how old now?
She's 7.
Okay.
So she's going to be around these big social, engaging environments, because you're not going to grow up sheltered and afraid to talk to people and whatnot that society kind of breeds, right? And just keeping her, even when she was 2.5, I put her in a bilingual Montessori. They wouldn't take her
Got
because
it.
3.5 was the age. And I went back for 3 days, like, well, how much more do I need to pay? And ultimately, he's like, you're not going to stop coming back. Like, nope. She needs this now.
Yeah.
She's malleable now.
And she was 3.5 at the time.
She's 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah, they wouldn't take her because she wasn't potty trained yet, right?
Shit.
I'm like, hey, I get it. It's more labor and all this stuff, so I'll pay more.
Right.
Finally, caved. He's like, $50 extra a week. I'm like, an extra $200 a week for my
Done.
daughter to start learning Spanish?
For 200, what, $50 a week?
Yeah. So it worked out.
Yeah.
But hopefully that answers your question on the
Yeah,
intentionality.
yeah.
There's nothing is too small, because it all has a trajectory. And the trajectory matters, because you're never going to hit what you're aiming for necessarily, right? In this life, there's always adjustments needing to be made, and there's always things that knock us off that trajectory. But if you aim high, just like in archery, right? Like, if you want to hit that target, you're not aiming straight. You got to aim high, and your trajectory will land you where you need to go.
Right. It kind of, as you're saying that, it reminds me of the old adage, ready, fire, aim, where it's, how do we get ready, but at the same time, just take action from the entrepreneurship side of things, where it's, how do we just take action and then figure it out and change course, but just get on the road, right? Even when you got on the road and we're heading to Texas and didn't know exactly where you were going to go. And I could resonate with that a lot. In 2019, I did the exact same thing. December 2019, did the exact same thing, packed up in a car and drove out, and luckily had someone to stay with, and everything I had was in a storage unit at the time. But, it speaks through the masculine journey. Have you ever read any of the books by John Eldridge?
Into the Wild, right?
There's one that I think it's Wild at Heart.
Yeah, Wild at Heart. That's what it is.
Wild at Heart, Beautiful Outlaw. You'd like that one.
Yeah.
You'd like that one. Beautiful Outlaw. It's all about the perspective of Jesus's life as an outlaw, and it was just a fascinating book. That was another one of his. Another one was Fathered by God, but it encompasses this whole idea of the masculine journey that we're talking about. Kind of makes us think about personal things and personal experiences we've gone through, but it always reminds me of the movie The Lion King, right? And what can happen to a lot of us, a lot of young men in general that don't have the right guidance, can not have Mufasa growing up,
Yep.
right? And what ends up happening is that as they go through life, they can sometimes go down the path of too much play. Everything is Hakuna Matata. I think right now in our culture, we have a lot of Hakuna Matata
Yep.
with young men.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, it's
Men don't know how to be men.
right. They're running around, and everything is don't worry about it. Everything is very playful and very casual, and that's something that people around me I've said a few different times. Like, hey, let's not be so casual. We don't need to be casual. Let's keep it all professional, and then we can all have fun later. We can have professional fun, right? And it's interesting, and that movie makes me think about this young man that goes through something traumatic and doesn't have the leadership of his father, goes off on a path, Hakuna Matata, eating bugs, not even realizing the power he has within him, not knowing his responsibility, his God-given responsibility as the type of animal he is, right? He happens to be a lion, but we as men are created in the image of God, so we have a responsibility with the free will that he's given us, and be taken down different pathways. And he gets to the point of maybe meeting a strong girl, right, as you're raising your daughter to be. Nala comes along, and she was forced to be strong.
Yeah.
She was forced to be strong because she had to fend for the pride when he wasn't there doing his job, right? So now he had to take a step back, and she looked at him and said, this is not who you are. But it really took him. And this is, even with the way culture is now, and there are a lot of good-intentioned ladies and women and girls, but young men, they need that tribe together and to look up, right? In the movie, what does he do? He looks up to the clouds, right? And he gets that message from his father for who he belonged to, right? He looked up to the clouds and he's like, what are you doing? This is the path you're supposed to be on. This is what I made you to be. And he had to go through that. It's fascinating. Within one of those books, John Eldredge talks about the masculine journey in his eyes, and he brings the concept of boyhood, cowboy, warrior, lover, king, sage, and I love the layout. And what can happen is that sometimes certain experiences keep us in the earlier stages. And never truly getting to our king phase because we stay in the others a little too long, right? We're adolescent cowboys, we're Peter Pans, right? We never get to the point. Some even warriors, right? In law enforcement, you might have been alongside a lot of men that maybe were just living in that warrior phase their entire lives, and never got to the point of that kingship that sounds like you're experiencing now. Right, it's a very interesting model.
And you're hitting the nail on the head, right? Because what you're, if I can, what you're hitting on the problem is passivity, right? And common misconception: the first sin committed by man was biting the apple. It was actually a passivity, right, of Adam allowing it to happen. Right? And that's the culture and society we're in. That's the picture you're painting with Simba. He was being passive about what was going on back home, and
passive.
That passivity, it's funny because we hear a lot about toxic masculinity, right? Like that's a term that gets thrown around all the time. I happen to believe that it is a thing, like it's a massive problem, but it's in women. It's not in men. Because
the toxic masculinity is in women.
Correct.
Okay.
Just like take the Nala situation, right?
Yep.
She had to figure out how to be that strong to fend for the pride because there were no men stepping forth, right?
She had to put the armor on.
Correct.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, in today's society, we have such a problem of weak, beta-driven men not being themselves, right? Being that king that's just kind of going around the woods with the hog and the, you know, little rodents.
Whatever they were.
Correct.
Eating bugs.
Yeah. So it's forced women that they have nobody to follow.
Yep.
So what do they turn to? They turn to the only strength that they can find. There's a lot of masculine content and what have you that the polarity gets completely thrown off because they don't have a choice, right? And men do it we've done it to ourselves. The only way to fix that is to step into our masculinity, step into being the king of the pride that we're supposed to be. And that switch, it's simple. It's not easy for a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And you could really, you could dive down that in such a rabbit hole of, you know, what problems are out there and what submissive, passive situations look like and what they brew into. It's crazy.
Oh, I mean, listen, that word passive, the fact that you just framed it that way, that word passive is powerful,
Yeah.
right? And exactly, right? So you're in a situation where Nala is forced to hunt, Nala's forced to wear the armor, and now because of the situations that she was put in without the strong leadership and guidance of men, now she's behaving in a way, and I never heard anyone frame it that way, where toxic masculinity is when women embrace masculinity. Is that that's
Yeah,
the toxic side of it?
Because we all have it, right? Men and women both have feminine and masculine
Qualities,
energy.
100%.
But there's a balance to it.
Completely.
Right? And we've gotten to a society that balance is just completely thrown off and doesn't exist. So women if they have nothing to follow, it's how our society got to this point in the first place. And the positive, right, is you had men leading their households, leading themselves, and raising, like the concept of a king and a queen, right? You can't have a queen without a king.
Yep.
Right? If you really dive down it, that a king has to exist to have a queen, right? You can't raise princes and princesses without a king and a queen, right? So a princess can exist all day long, but she can't become a queen until she's found her king, right? So the strong male has to exist first. And if you really even break that down to the prince side of things, you see the stories depicted, whether fictional or not, right? It's always the same thing. You have the prince out, you know, chasing girls and having fun, and very similar to the Lion King, right? Until one day he's like, I have a calling here. It's not just, hey, this is your birthright. Go ahead and step into the throne now. It's yours. I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine that has a business he's getting ready to step into, and his father's been on that throne for a while, and he's like, man, I can't figure out. I can't get to the throne yet. It's like, man, because the king doesn't hand down the throne. You got to go take it. Like there's a birthright, but there's also a timing, right? Like if you're not that strong male that says, hey, appreciate it, it's time to move or be moved, then nobody's moving from the throne. And nobody's following somebody that's like, hey, can I have that throne now?
Yeah.
That's the world we live in. It's like, well, can I have that? Can I be that? I don't know. Do you want it? Go take it. Right? It's like, well, I don't feel confident in myself, right? You have all these passive men that don't feel confident in themselves. They don't know who they are, and then instead, they just go identify what they want to be, right? They go create something that they're not, even if it is physically not what they were born to be. They go create it because they're not capable of being the man that they are.
Yeah.
So it's just easier to go, I'm gonna go be a woman now. Because it's society is okay with it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna get validated and I'm gonna get appreciated and I'm gonna get championed in it. So I'm gonna go be this because everybody's okay with it. And I'm gonna shy away from who I'm actually called to be and who I actually am because I'm afraid to just step into it.
Yeah.
And then it just creates this void that can't be filled. Suicide rates, everything.
Suicide rates are the highest they've ever been in history, right? Especially with men. And some of the numbers of a men versus women from a suicide perspective is, again, I don't know the exact number, from maybe 80, 85% from a balance perspective, but listen, I mean, it's a very interesting time. It reminds me of another metaphor of a Disney movie, right? If you think of the movie Aladdin, right? And there's a strong message there.
Yep.
And there's some young men that are within the Don community also, and we had a conversation about this the other day. We were talking about the Lion King and, Simba raising up and being who he was born to be and taking the throne back from the usurper of the throne, right? So he really came up, and not just his birthright, but his birthright that was illegitimately taken from him. And I think a lot of men can learn from that lesson to say, where's your birthright and who has your birthright right now? And it doesn't even have to be directly your father. It could be someone else that has your birthright that you need to go and you need to take.
Yep.
So we're talking about the movie Aladdin, and with the thought process being with this sense of royalty, right? You're a big man of faith as well, right? And if you think about God the Father and Jesus being King of Kings, is like, well, what does that mean? That means you're royalty, right? If
Yep.
that's the bloodline you believe you're destined from. And the idea of this young man who wanted nothing more than the princess, but realizing it started within in him behaving like a prince. And then there's an interesting part when Aladdin's like, listen, I didn't do anything. You were a prince all along, but you had to behave like one.
Yep.
Right? I think there's a huge lesson for young men nowadays. They just stop floating around like Peter Pans out there. Behave like royalty, right? In a way that embodies class. We use that word a lot in the Don community, the word class, because it has zero to do with money. I know plenty of people that have a lot of money and no class. And I know people that have limited money and have a lot of class.
Yeah.
So that's something that we like to embrace as well. And I think it's something that we should talk about more as a culture, to say, you know what, let's live with class, which means also doing the right thing every time.
Yeah.
So just an interesting metaphor behind this Disney movie,
Yeah.
that all of a sudden it's like, well, teaching these young men, say, listen, it's there. You have to start behaving that way. And it doesn't mean behaving like a lady or a girl. It means behaving like a prince.
Yep.
And for a prince to hold himself a certain way and feeling like you're royalty inside,
Yep.
and treating people as such,
Yeah.
right? 'Cause
There's a kingdom, there's a throne that you represent. There's responsibilities and expectations on you, and you have to carry those out. You have to be aware of them, right? And I love that you talk about behaving, because I was with a client the other day talking about, he's like, I struggle with courage. I struggle having courage.
Courage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, can we pray on courage for me? I'm like, we can, but one thing you need to know and make sure you remember is, God doesn't just give us these things when we ask for them. Right? If you want courage, He's going to give you situations and opportunities
To be courageous.
To be courageous
All day.
But what it is a behavior.
Yeah.
Like, you have to act your way into it. You have to actually behave in a manner that is courageous, right? You have to dive into these things. Words matter. So often, even men of faith, if you listen to the prayers and you listen to what they're believing for, it's like, I'm believing God's going to give me a spirit of this. I'm believing God's going to give me courage. He's going to give me this, that, what have you. It's like, okay, well, what's your part in that?
Okay.
So many of us just overlook that part. It's like, God gives you opportunities to strengthen in those areas, and careful what you're asking for, because it's opportunities He's going to give you, right? If you want strength, He's going to put you in situations that you're going to have to be strong.
Exactly.
So when something comes heavy on you, don't be like, whoa, God, what's going on? This is hard.
Yeah.
You said you wanted strength.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put these weights on you so
Damn
you can
right.
start lifting so you can get strong.
It's like, no, but I wanted you to make me strong.
Yeah,
That's the only way you're going to get strong.
Yeah, it's like going to the gym
All
and
day.
being like, hey, I want 22-inch biceps.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Here's the routine. Here's the weights. Execute this in 6 months.
For X amount of time. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no. I don't want to do the work. I don't want to actually follow through
Sure.
the struggle.
Sure.
I just want the result.
Yep.
And that's the instant gratification world we live in.
Yep.
Right. And so many people play with their faith in that aspect of like, well, God, just give me that. Like, oh, I have this for you. It's already yours. It's already declared. But you have to go through the trial. You have to go through the struggle, and you have to follow what I've laid out for you in the Word to achieve it.
Yeah.
If you won't take the steps, I can't help you.
Yeah. So within coaching, right? Because coaching is also a big part of your coaching men, coaching young men, maybe a bunch of Simbas that are running around, right? That don't necessarily have the right path for them. How do you work with your clients? Like, what does that look like? Is it individual? Are you doing like, what is that when you work with a young man that comes to you and says,
Yep.
this is where I want to go? What is that structure like? Are there certain things that you put him through to understand where he is, right? Almost a pre-test before basic training, right? In theory, right? In going through with your law enforcement and military background, I'm sure that does run through your mind. I would assume it would. Especially, I love before when you mentioned knowing when to follow and when to lead, right? That was a huge problem I had when I was younger. Huge. Because there was a lot of talent. I was able to excel in certain areas, and I was able to leverage my talent, but trying to lead at all times.
Yeah.
Right? And not understanding the delicate balance between leading and following in getting to where I wanted to go. But if you're only going to get to where you wanted to go thinking it's only when you're leading, you're never going to get there. So the fact that you said that complete harmony with what I believe also. So when you work with the client, what does that framework usually look like?
Sure. Yeah, because there's no self-made anything, right? Anybody says they're self-made, they're just being selfish, is what I say. And
lone wolves die.
Yeah. So through the journey you've been through, right? I've got a toolbox full of things. The businesses are running themselves, so it's been really on my heart to lead down what you're saying, which is just coaching men on being men, because we don't have enough of them.
Okay.
And that usually looks like one of two ways. So I've got coaching from a one-on-one perspective.
Yep.
And that's just meeting men with where they're at, and a lot of discovery calls in the beginning to just kind of figure out like, okay, well, what are your core values? Oh, do you even know what core values are, right? What's your purpose? Are you living a purpose-driven life? What are your non-negotiables? What's your routine? What's your structure look like? Like, what are we working with? What's your goals? Are your goals just to make X amount of money? Well, what are you going to do with it, right? Like, it's really kind of diving in the details to make them think a layer or two deeper, so we can figure out where the gaps are. Really good dot connector, but you got to do a lot of listening in that aspect, right? The other angle is I have like a 2-day intensive, right, where I put together 2 days of just living in excellence. And I'm not saying I do this every day, but it's a very intentional 2 days of I put together a meal plan for them. It's catered meals. They don't have to worry about what they're eating, but it's probably the best their diet has been ever. We'll do some hard workouts. We'll go in the conference room and we'll work on auditing what's their day look like, what's their work look like, what's their relationship look like. We'll go to the range. We'll see what their proficiency with a weapon is for protecting themselves or their family. Lot of different things on a very high level of what being a man should entail.
Got it. And
from there, it always breaks somebody from where they've been stuck, right? So that intensive called Unstuck for that reason. Most guys you talk to at a certain level of life, they're like, man, I don't know what it is, but I'm not there. Something's not right. Like I need something more.
Yeah.
You put them through something like that, then gets the brain flowing. It starts identifying a bunch of blind spots, right? So that's that intensive 2-day deal. But most of what I deal with clients is that one-on-one. Let's figure out where you are, whether you're the 26-year-old that's stuck in the corporate environment, knows he wants more, but doesn't know how to get off the hamster wheel. Cool. Let's talk about what that looks like. Let's figure out what your best and highest uses are. Let's figure out, are your core values put together so you have filters on what your yeses and nos are so we can get you to that goal. Or are you a CEO of a company with 80 employees and your marriage is okay and your kids, you see them however often? Like, What is missing? What are the pain points? Let's identify them. Again, are you even living in your purpose? I had a client that I was talking to one day about, man, I really want to be in this ministry more. I'm just making so much impact here, but I'm limited. You know, my job over here allows me to do it. I make very good money, so it allows me to do my ministry because it gives me free time. You know, good 20 minutes into it, we're talking about, hey, the reason you're limited over here is because you're not doing anything with what's in your hand that God's already given you. Your business has got 12 leaders. There's no coincidence in that number, and you guys are touching 60 clients. It's car sales, 60 customers a month. How many households are you touching? How many impacts in community are you missing out on?
Yeah.
Because you're not
How do you scale that?
Principles and core values and leadership opportunities and like discipling into your team so that they can go impact homes and communities. Like, you have a whole ministry right here you're not even touching because you're so focused on this ministry over here.
Yeah.
Mainly because you were looking to fulfill a void that you weren't paying attention to at work.
Got it.
Right? So it's being able to just spend 15, 20 minutes on a discovery call and figure out what's hurting, what's missing, and let's go find those blind spots, fill them, connect them, and find a way to be intentional about the plan and finding our purpose of advancing the kingdom the way God's called us to do it.
Yeah. Oh, and I get it completely, but it's always great to catch up, my friend.
Likewise, man.
We're going to play a quick game of 9-ball?
Absolutely.
All right, what's the bet? All right, we got a lunch.
What matters most to you?
Whoa. That's a heavy question. Well, why don't we say...
Hey, I like food, so I'll go with
you like food? All right, lunch. Lunch is the bet?
lunch. It is.
All right, lunch is the bet. Always good to chat with you, my friend.
And then I freaking cameras, man.
I thought you did that on purpose.
Cameras.
I thought you did that on purpose. I thought you.
Over here, click.
That's it. Fogo the chow. I'm calling now.
Okay, you're up. I'm getting all nervous with that camera staring at me.
All right, what do we got? Nothing. You played 9-ball before?
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things
Well,
that...
I played 9-ball with a lot of different people, so what are your house rules here?
Lowest number, don't hit the lowest number, instant scratch. Lowest number into 9 wins. Right, so right now you'd have to hit the 1. You don't hit the 1 first, instant scratch.
Yep.
I get to put the ball wherever I want. Lowest number into the 9-ball, game's over.
Okay.
So,
It's a great setup.
yeah, got an instant scratch. I'm going to take the game out. Are you going to holler?
It's the only shot I have.
Shit.
I guess I bank
All right.
back here. Now watch me mess this up too.
Oh, he makes it happen. So one of the things that we were talking about, so with some of the young men that you're coaching, what do you think has been the number one thing that they've been coming to you with? Has it been, financial side of things? Has it been finances? Has it been dating, women? Like, what do you find that they're coming to you most with?
Most of them have no vision whatsoever. But the most common thing is they come to me with financial/business,
Yeah.
and within 5-10 minutes, it's going back to dating, right? Because they're looking for financial and business to be the successor. This is what makes me a man.
Yeah.
And it's like, hold on, we're going down this path, but you're actually trying to achieve this over here.
But do you think that they're trying to get the success in the business world just for the dating part?
Yeah, so I'm saying
Okay.
they see that as the success is what I need to attract the woman. It's like, no, it's being the man that you need to be in achieving that success. Otherwise, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So even like the most recent client I had, a young guy with the gym and whatnot, it was a business conversation, but within 20 minutes, we're talking about how to lead his wife because she's leading the house.
Ah, yeah.
So he believed that he was failing in his marriage leading his wife because he wasn't the breadwinner. But while that's a piece of it, it's not the main problem.
Right.
So outside of that, most guys just don't, they don't have a north.
They don't, right. They're just kind of floating around, Peter Pans.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of them are being passive, like we're saying, but not because they don't care to be otherwise, but it's never been modeled for them. They don't know, right?
Can we just say how good of a shot that was? That's what I said.
Just eased it right in there.
I get hyper competitive.
Hey, no worries.
This is the healthy masculinity side of us. Here we go. Let's go.
It's
So they end up bringing that topic, and it ends up being the topic over and over again.
correct.
Yeah.
It always becomes a root topic with a lot of young men.
Yeah.
It's just
What do you think the biggest problem that they're making is, as far as is just not leading in their own lives first, to then attract what they need to get that's going to come
correct,
from there?
right?
Yeah.
So I was on a call with a client yesterday about that of my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Right. He's like, how did you get this? I'm like, well, first off, do you know what you want?
Yeah.
Like, you're just out here poking and pointing, like, I want that. But do you? Like, have you written it out? Have you written out what she looks like? Have you written out what she does, what she cares about? What are her values? Like, what kind of home does she come from? All these things. And the answer is usually no, never done it. But when we walk them through that exercise, you write it out, and it's like, cool, this is what you want. This is everything you want in a woman. Yep. Cool. What is that woman attracted to, and are you that? Right? Oh, no,
Couldn't agree
not at all.
more.
It's like, okay,
You
cool. So
just
go
hit the
focus
nail on
on
the head.
being the guy that
Oh.
attracts that woman,
Nailed it, my man.
and she'll show up.
Nailed it. 100%.
Being intentional is the name of the game, right? Like, you want to find a solid woman, go look at the gym at 5 in the morning, not the bar at 5 p.m. Or even if you're looking at the gym, go look at 5 in the morning, not 5 p.m. where it's just, meat market and women dressing up to
Women working out in their
ball
underwear.
in hand, two back, what?
You can scratch anywhere on the table, by the way, if you want to put it over here.
Right.
Got a whole bunch of stuff down there. All right, let's see.
I gotta start redeeming myself here.
There we go.
Where's the forehead anyway?
So what's the rest of 24 look like?
Oh man,
A few more eye cryos.
Yeah,
What are you thinking?
we're taking over 3 right now. 1 in Boca, 2 in New York. The rest of 24 looks like a lot of travel, a lot of speaking, a lot of just letting my team work the business side and staying out of it.
Is your team mostly here, or are they remote, or are they mostly here in Texas?
There's a good blend of all the above.
Yeah.
I'd say the good piece of the core part of the team is here locally. But we're location agnostic in what we do. So with it being the business tree that it is, my whole calling and purpose of it is to take everything that we know here in the incubator we're part of, right, and be able to feed it out.
Yeah.
So choosing the location based off of the who's, determine the what's, and that determines the where,
Got it.
right? So I find the relationship through coaching clients, whatnot. They may be a business in New York. Well, that's the who, the what, it's this business in New York, right? So if all those alignments are in the right piece, it makes it easy to determine what business I hand off to my team that I know they're equipped to do, and then I just keep staying out hunting. Because the business just becomes, let me just pull that,
Nah, leave it in.
you know,
No, take it.
I ain't taking that. If you're gonna let-
He didn't want any pity,
No,
pity
no.
shots.
no beta male on this board.
Yeah, none of that. Those accidental shots.
No, the business is truly discipleship
Yeah.
playing out, right?
Like that's yeah.
There's ways to do biblical kingdom business without putting a cross on the front door. Not that we're hiding any of it, but that's really how you bring people in comfortable enough to start asking about God.
Sure.
All right. Like we can say that our mission statement in that business, for example, that management company is do what's right, love people, work humbly, which is what we say. Well, geez. Instead of just saying it's Micah 6:8, right? So we live out Micah 6:8, and then that prompts the team to ask me, like, hey, where did you get this from?
And as you said that, you said Micah 6:8, right? Mm-hmm. As you were saying that, you were hitting the 6, holding the 8. I just wanted to share that real quick.
Nice.
Which I thought was kind of funny.
Yep.
As soon as you had your hand over, I was like, all right.
Hey, there's no coincidence.
So the name of the cue ball for the remainder of the game is Micah.
I like it.
Oh man,
Because most of the discipleship and really leading is not about saying it; it's about doing it, right?
Sure.
So you create the culture around it in a way that people want to follow the excellence and follow the template, and then they ultimately will ask you where the template came from. We're going to attempt to run it all the way down there.
All right, I'm done now.
Nope. Too hard a cut. It sets you right up. There you go. Don't mess it up.
Oh,
Jason, this
Yep.
will be like the final conversation.
Yep. Next ball wins. Except if I hit this, because then that'll be a little.
There you go. Just sink the 9 there.
There we go. Let's get this 9 in. So, for the coming year, young men that are in that path, where can they find you? Where's the best place?
TravisTaylor.com.
Yeah.
Everything's connected there. Yep. Stop.
All right, this is you. All right, I think you're getting lunch coming up. All right, I owe you lunch. It's always good to see you, my man.
Likewise, man.
Until next time. See you, bud.
Appreciate you.